JJ right in your face.
Welcome back to the Faedaway podcast, episode number 8. I'm your host, Faedaway, and I got my boy Zaid here with me. Zaid, how you doing, bro?
Good, man. The Super Bowl last night.
Woo!
Slap-a-rooski, bro.
TB12, baby.
I tweeted before the game, and I'm going to stand by, obviously not because he won, but I don't want to hear anything about Bill Belichick or any TB12 slander. I'm not even a football fan. I'm not even a football person. I just know the GOAT when I see one.
7's pretty incredible. They're talking about like greatest athlete of all time, though, and he can't really run.
That's the thing. I saw. I saw that tweet on someone sent in one of the groups or whatever about him playing like 34 real hours of actual football, and he can't be an athlete. He can't be the best athlete ever. But then you have to differentiate. Is it based on athletic ability or is it based off of achievements? Achievements, he's there, man. You can't beat 7. You can't beat being the best football player to ever
Quarterback too,
and he's not even done yet.
Yeah,
so
man,
it's
that's
crazy.
The scary part.
It's crazy what he's been doing.
Him and Gronk have been to. They won 4 rings together, and they have like the number one. The amount of touchdowns between the two of them in the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's great. We were talking about this yesterday, just among our friends, but we're fortunate, man.
Yeah,
we're growing up in a very good sports era in terms of,
Goats.
We watched Kobe, we watched LeBron, we watched Tom Brady, and then on the soccer side, Ronaldo, Messi.
Yeah.
And then you got Tiger Woods is one of the greats that we grew up in that era of. And then obviously we got to see the Raptors bring home a championship. So we've been kind of lucky, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Been kind of fortunate. I mean, from a Raptors perspective, it was a good week, and then it kind of ended off a bit slow.
Yeah.
But it was a weird week around the league, man. I felt like everyone this week had a career high somehow.
Yeah.
Rookies, non-rookies, everyone had their fair share. But I guess let's tackle some Raptors basketball, man. So if you want to start us off, how did they do this week? I know they had 3 games.
So that 3 games, they went 2-1 this week. I think they could have went 3-0 this week. But right before the 3rd game, they were tied for 6th with Atlanta, which is who they faced. So that was a really, really important game for the Raptors to win, just because you're tied with that team. So in the head-to-head, so you get that head-to-head advantage if you are battling for a specific spot in the Eastern Conference later down the road. But let's just kind of go game by game. I think the Magic game, Raptors at the Magic, was a very, very special game. And obviously there's no bigger headline in that game than Freddie breaking the Raptors scoring record and scoring 54 points.
That was the second night too, right? The second game.
I think off a back-to-back from Orlando.
It was Sunday, Tuesday.
Yeah, okay. But back-to-back games against Orlando. Mm-hmm. And Freddie was just on fire. Like he went 11 for 13 from 3, and I think
it was the hottest 54 points I had ever seen. And I've seen a lot of like Steph Curry 50+ points.
Yeah.
And he's definitely making outlandish shots. I'm not going to compare. But Freddie was just composed. It looked like a very normal game where he just didn't miss.
Yeah, exactly. And he was just locked in, and he was just making pretty much everything. But
routine.
Routine. But as much as, we can give as much praise as we want for 54 points. The best, there's many records. It's a Raptor franchise record for points in a game. There's most points in a game by an undrafted player as well. I think the biggest thing for me, my biggest takeaway from that game from Freddie in particular was, despite him scoring 54 points, him defensively, watching him play defense, watching him lock down ball handlers, watching him play in front of guys while scoring 54 points, I think is what made that game so much more special for him. Because, we've seen DeMar do it. We've seen Terrence Ross score 50 in a game, but we've never seen them play on both ends of the floor during those games. And I think for me, from what I love about Freddie being able to play that defense is when he can't score 54 points, what is he going to do? And we'll get into it a little bit later. That next game was a bit of an off game for him, but he still defended well. And so that's what I love the most about that game from Freddie in particular was you dropped 54. That's amazing. Congratulations. A huge milestone. I was like a proud father watching that game because we've watched Freddie grow up so much, right?
Does anybody have more swag than him though?
No, there isn't anybody with more swag.
He rocked that 50-point game like nobody has ever rocked it. I mean,
Easily.
He was just walking up and down the court straight face.
Yeah,
going into timeout straight face. He'll hit 4 straight threes, and it's just routine.
It was easy.
He's the coolest guy on the court.
Mm-hmm. It looked so easy for him, and it looked like it was another day at the office for him. And you love, the teammates being able to celebrate with him, and how Kyle Lowry was able to kind of hand him the game ball at the end of the game. So I think that was huge. But aside from all of that, we know Freddie had a great game. There's nothing to take away other than great game, great scoring, output, and
Kalo had a
and
triple
great
double.
defense. Exactly, Kalo had a triple double, which. What was nice was a good filler. I think it was like a 14-point triple double, around there.
10-10.
Exactly. That's exactly how I want to see Kyle Lowry contribute to the game. I don't want to see him take 20 shots, 15 to 20 shots. I want to see him score in a timely manner, and I want to see him facilitate and grab rebounds and draw charges and do what he does best. Another thing that wasn't so great actually was Pascal, and I think he went 0 for 2 from 3. I'm glad he's taking the 3. I'm okay with that. He went 1 from 6 from the field. And that's a bit concerning for me because there's not much else to his game.
To be fair, though, the 2 games before that, he had 30, and the game after that, he had 30.
Yeah.
It seemed like a one-off game. I mean, I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he has been a bit slow, but
yeah,
I just want to say, he's been relatively better.
Yeah.
Offensively, since the last time we came here to talk and we said, why don't you just become more of a Giannis? He's actually been attacking a lot more. He's been driving it a lot more and reading that mismatch. I like it. I mean, if he's going to give us 30-plus and help us win, then I don't care if he's not shooting threes. The nights you have 12, though.
My only issue is just the sustainability of being able to do that every game and being able to do that in the playoffs when teams are taking away your paint, are taking away your post-up move, which for some reason – no team in the league has taken it away in the last 2 years, which is really like on the scouting report side is kind of confusing. But my kind of biggest note for Pascal, just in that game in specific, I know he had 2 30-point games after, and he played great this week. Was just I hope it doesn't become a facilitator because we didn't pay a max guy to become a facilitator. I want him to be able to score. I want him to be able to rebound and run the floor and run the offense. I like what I'm seeing from the facilitating side, but I need more on the scoring side and more versatile offensive game from him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, to be fair, with Fred getting 54, he was like the focal point of that game.
Yeah.
That one was a bit of a wash. But yeah, we definitely got to be more consistent. Now, one thing that's kind of been pissing me off that I got to get off my chest here is every game the Raptors played this week, they've notched a technical foul. They've gone 4 techs in the last 3 games. Hey, Nick, shut up.
I mean,
hey, Nick Nurse, stop complaining. Every damn game, unfailingly, Nick Nurse is yelling up and down the sideline.
Yeah.
I get it. It's frustrating. But at this point, you're costing your team points.
Yeah.
Every single game. You can't be doing that if you're not playing.
Yeah.
How many times are you going to do that, bro?
But it's not just Nick. Kyle Lowry is known amongst the league to be one of the biggest guys.
Yeah, but Nick is
work.
leading coaches in the NBA. Why?
Yeah, that's a big focal point, I think, as well. Yeah, that's not something
it's just frustrating. That Atlanta game, there was so many times where they were making that comeback, and then boom, 4 straight techs in a row. Why, guys? What the hell's going on?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. There it is. It's not just Nick. It's 4 technicals or a group of technicals amongst players. I know Bembry got one in the Atlanta game. I saw what happened. It seemed like he was giving one of the officials just some lip, I guess. Nothing crazy though. And then another official came in and kind of defended.
And the officiating's been disgusting too.
See, this is the thing where you have to sort of give it a level playing field. The officiating has always been disgusting, and it's been worse in games, and it's been not as bad in games.
I feel like it's worse this year.
The Brooklyn game, literally, I wrote down it's 8-5. The Brooklyn game was atrocious officiating. But at what point do you stop complaining and stop getting your technicals and just learn how to play around it, play through it, or play with it? Having 4 technicals in a game, having 3 technicals in a game, you're costing yourself points. So what route do you take?
I think they're watering down their complaints too because they literally complain about everything.
Yeah.
You have a guy like Chris Boucher who's screaming on every take and he's yelling, calling for the foul. Yo, brother, I get it. Tennis players, they grunt and they have their thing when they hit.
Yeah.
If you want to scream, that's fine. Stop complaining.
Yeah.
Stop asking for a review after every call. His verticality is terrible. Every time, he's coming down. And he's complaining every single time. Stop complaining.
Yeah.
It's just, and Lowry's a whole different story, but I mean, Lowry's been this way for years, but it feels like this year that the refs are just not having it with him.
Which, I mean, why should they though? At the same time,
He's a champ. Anybody with his resume is getting more respect.
Agreed with that
I've
one.
never seen more charges, blatant charges that he's taking that are just no calls. How?
I agree with that, but the reason why they're not taking it is because he's built this reputation of complaining after every single call.
It's too much.
So it goes both ways.
If you watch it, he's not as bad, but he's starting. There's been a few times where he dribbles his way out of proper basketball.
Yeah.
He turns it over. He does a bad play, and he's complaining.
Mm-hmm.
Get back on defense, bro.
Yeah.
It's getting so annoying, and they're all just mimicking the coach and just complaining and just feeling bad for themselves. Like, just play the damn game.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. Every game now we're looking at attack a game. Who are we?
It's frustrating. There's got to be a happy medium with it. That's the only thing. Like refereeing has been at an all-time worst this year, I think, and so it's much more frustrating for the players, much more frustrating for the coach, and to get like the Raptors aren't even getting calls that they usually would get. So it's been really bad. But on the flip side, that was a huge win for the Raptors against the Magic. A few days later, they played against the Brooklyn Nets.
What a game!
And they won 123-117. I thought this was, obviously this helps feed your point, but I thought this was the best offensive game that I've seen the Raptors play all season. And obviously it goes against a historically poor defense in the Brooklyn Nets. KD was in and out of the lineup due to a bunch of the COVID protocols and whatever. So in terms of how do the Raptors match up against the Nets, I'm not exactly sure yet. But offensively, Pascal Siakam dominated the post, dominated the paint, 33-11 that game. And it just also speaks to the Nets' lackluster paint presence. Kyle Lowry had 30 and 7. It was vintage Kyle Lowry that we saw. I think the biggest thing for Lowry was he took over that fourth quarter and that ending to really solidify the win for them. And it was so good to watch Lowry just pull up and shoot.
You know why he came back like that? Was that the game they poked the bear?
They poked the bear. That was the game they poked the bear.
The bear was poked?
Yeah.
The bear was poked that game.
Yeah. And it showed.
No foul, though.
No foul.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't watched, what Fede is referring to is they poked him, scratched him in the face.
Whatever the case was, his
starts
blood
bleeding.
gushing from
Starts bleeding.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know if he needed stitches or not, but he had a Band-Aid on for a couple of games.
Yeah. You know what's funny, too?
And no call.
That night, from our account, we tweeted at Mama Kalo.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry's mama on Twitter. And we're like, yo, like, officiating's been hella suspect. She's like, isn't it always?
Yeah, and that's...
Like, they definitely talk about that at Thanksgiving, bro.
That's the life of a Raptors fan.
Kyle Lowry hates the refs, too. We know it.
That's the life of a Raptors fan. But, man, Pascal and Lowry really led the Raptors that game. I think Freddie had a slow game coming off that 54 points. So it's nice to have somebody else that can pick it up in Kyle Lowry.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out. Yeah. Sorry, actually, go ahead. Say your point and I'll point it out.
But I just want everybody to play together. My biggest thing was play together, play in sync, play cohesively. But it's also nice that the Raptors have somebody when Freddie's struggling or not having a great game, somebody else can step up into that role. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. One thing I loved about Freddie in that game, the Brooklyn game, if you remember, we came on here and we're like, Kyrie Irving, since coming back from his hiatus, averaging 37, 28 on the season, 35 plus since he came back from the hiatus.
Yeah.
He was taking like 24 to 27 shots a game.
Yeah.
That game, he had 15 points off of 15 shots.
Exactly.
He was, he was like 6 for 12 or something. Sorry, 15 points off 12 shots. Yeah, it was 50%. But if you're going to tell me I'm going to hold this guy to half the shots, he's going to score 15 points, I don't care if he's shooting 85%. This is a guy who scores 37, 35 on a nightly basis. So on that night, with him not playing well offensively, like your point earlier, he's bringing it defensively at an elite level, and he hit a dagger 3. Yeah, he hit the dagger 3 at the end of the game, and he smiled and he tweeted after. He's like, "It's about time." Like sometimes you just need that one is the most important one to hit, and that's what I meant. I went on Facebook after, and people were hating like, "Oh, Fred Van Vleet, one game he has 54." Like, do you? And these people, like, they proclaim to be, I played a high level basketball. I know more than you. But how are you not even looking at him on defense if you're going to tell me you played a high level of basketball?
And the best part of it is, if you didn't watch that game, you wouldn't know what Fred Van Vleet did on the defensive end, because on his plus minus was a +1. Imagine being a +1 but having to guard Kyrie Irving and holding him to 15 points in the game. That's not something that happens often.
Yeah.
And for his effort on that defensive end, he had 2 steals, and he just played great on-ball defense and really disrupted the Brooklyn Nets offense. And for a guy who dropped 54 and was struggling in the next game, what else can you ask for? You can't ask for anything else. He didn't keep shooting.
Yeah.
He didn't empty the clip. He just had confidence that the offense will come soon and that defense is where he's going to make his money now, and he did that.
And if you look at it too, James Harden was held to 17 points.
Yeah, it was a tough game for the Nets.
Let's talk about that KD thing too, because I feel like we should address that a little bit.
Sure,
Because KD, there was a weird situation where he didn't really play the game, and
he didn't start.
One aspect of it is like I actually think Brooklyn is like terrible without him on the court, and that's a whole different discussion. Because you still have James and Kyrie, but it just looks awful without him on the floor. But secondly, like what's going on in the league? So this guy warms up. And he had tested negative 3 times in a 24-hour span prior to the game. Mm-hmm. He warms up. They come on mid-warm-up. They're like, yo, some guy you had come into contact with earlier today may have been exposed. Can you chill back here till we get it all figured out?
Yep.
Goes back, comes in mid-first quarter. First game in his career to play off the bench.
Yeah.
But comes in mid-first quarter and plays the game, plays the half. 2 minutes or 3 minutes into the second half, he picks up his 5th foul that they somehow reversed. He clearly body checked Norm on the fast break, but whatever.
They
gets his 5th foul, gets it reversed, doesn't come back in the game because the person apparently that had tested, or the person that he had come into contact with before, his positive test came back mid-game. Why is he there if there's no test? Why is he not traveling, but the team is still traveling? Why do the Raptors get to play
the next game?
What's going on here? This is a mess, a gigantic mess. And he took to Twitter, too. He's pissed.
The problem is just the inconsistencies in that. And you know, if you have to pull him from the game, he's already come into contact with everybody on the Nets side. He's already come into contact with whoever he's played against on the Raptors side. They get tested. I'm sure they get tested after the game, before the next game, whatever. They get cleared to go. He doesn't get cleared to go. The Nets get to travel without him. So I think the league is trying to not make it up as they go, but figure it out as they go. And it's kind of a mess because of that. And, you know, and now they've added the All-Star game, which we'll talk about that later and what we think about the All-Star game being added to the season later. But the league is in a very difficult position this year because the product they're producing is extremely underwhelming. And they had to put KD out there. You know what I mean? Like, if he's like, okay, 3 negative tests, go. We want him to play.
But then why are they holding him back now?
Because of that second negative test for the other person. Like, it just late information that happened. Which in hindsight,
massive PR
hindsight, don't play KD at all because you're not sure if he's come into contact or he hasn't. If you're waiting for somebody else's results, you shouldn't play him. Horrible PR move. KD took to Twitter, says you can't fool your fans. The league knows, the fans know, and we all know. You know, we all know it's about money. We all know they need to make up for a huge loss last year and this year. What can you do? This is how the league is this year.
No, absolutely. And one thing I want to say before we move on from Brooklyn is you really got to see like shades of how scary they can be offensively. Mm-hmm. And you, like Jack was saying it on the broadcast, like on a team like that, you can't not take advantage of your open shots.
Yeah. You
can't miss open shots. You can't turn the ball over. You need every possession to go amazing because these guys can come down and score like a 12-0 run in like 45 seconds.
And we've seen it. They've been down early in games and they just turn it on. They go on 12-0 runs, 10-0 runs, 15-0 runs, and they catch up.
Especially in our situation when you got Joe Harris was going off and then Jeff Green was going off. It's like, if KD's in the game, like assuming he's going off too, it's going to be tough to beat these guys or even like slow them down. Yeah. So that was an interesting game. But let's move on because we had a chance. The Raptors had a chance to really secure the 6th seed or even move up a little bit.
Yep.
But currently pushed back down to the 10th seed. Don't be alarmed because those 4 is like nothing apart.
They're a game behind.
It's nothing.
A game behind.
It's nothing. But
crazy.
Talk to us about the Hawks game. What were your takeaways from that game?
The Hawks game was a very, very frustrating game because a lot of the time it felt like the Raptors were playing from behind. And a lot of the time when the Raptors do play from behind, they don't usually end up getting over the hump. And then we talked about the technical fouls. The technical fouls are really prominent in that game, and that's what helped, push and give the Hawks the security for that game. What was amazing was a great performance from Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher, a career high 29 and 10. So he really found the gaps, found the holes that the Raptors needed, and was really able to produce. The one scary part of that game, and you can look at this through many different lenses. It depends how you want to look at it. 34% from three. And the Hawks as a team were 53% from three. So you're not shooting well on a team that...
Oh, and the Hawks are also one of the worst three-point percentage
exactly
in the whole league.
So you're on a team, the Raptors are giving up a very high percentage from three, which the Raptors have been doing all season against a team that shoots poorly, and they're shooting poorly from the three, which is usually around 50% of their offense. Granted, they only lost by 11 points? Like, they were kind of in it until the last few minutes, but it's scary when you're not shooting well. I got some shooting numbers here. Kalo shot 1 from 7. Shows how tired he was. 1 for 7 from 3. Shows how tired he was. Terrence Davis, 1 for 5. Yikes. 1 for 5. If you're taking 5 threes in a game, you only make 1. Why are you shooting past the third 3?
Well, he's got to shoot. That's his role.
I'd rather him put it on the floor. He's not just a shooter, though. He's good enough to do other things. His IQ just isn't there. Mm-hmm. It's not there for him. Player. It's not exactly. It's not there for him to last in the game. So the poor shooting was very frustrating. And then another thing was Kyle Lowry played 37 minutes in the Atlanta Hawks game, coming off a back-to-back against Brooklyn.
Against the Brooklyn Nets. It doesn't make any sense, man.
And this speaks to my point about Nick. You need to manage the players' minutes way better. On
the second night of a back-to-back, Stanley played 11 minutes. There's no OG.
Yep. And
Utah played 7 minutes.
Stanley was 2 for 2 from 3 against the Hawks. Utilize the players and be more strategic with the players. I've had a really big issue with Nick Nurse this year and his subs, his timeouts, and his minute management. It hasn't been the greatest. Coming off a back-to-back, I don't want to see a 36-year-old Kyle Lowry play 37 minutes. It's ridiculous. So for me,
I agree 100%.
It was a great effort from the Raptors. I think they let one slip away that they really could have brought home, but
I just think that's a scheduled loss, man. It's the second night of a back-to-back. Brooklyn, both games are on the road.
Yeah, I'm not
it's
holding...
a scheduled loss, and the fact that he played him, you're right. He should be given the respect of a DMP that game. Because
sure, yeah.
Or manages minutes better. Yeah. 37 minutes, bro. Mm-hmm. Pascal played 33. Norm played 32.
How do you... that's what really also sticks out, is how do you have Kyle Lowry play the second most minutes on the team that game? He's the oldest player on the team. How are you doing that to him off a back-to-back?
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
Some notable stuff, though. Freddie came to play. He had 25 and 10.
6 assists.
Starter Norm came out to play. He had 20 points, but he also only shot 1 for 5 from 3. When you live and die by the 3, it's tough. It's a trap game. It's one of those trap games.
Second night of a back-to-back with Brooklyn. That's the tough part, because Brooklyn, you have to come out and you're firing. They scored 120. And they still put up 120, but... their defense didn't show up at all.
Yeah.
132 points. You're not going to...
It was one of those trap games. Atlanta is also a tough team to play off a back-to-back. So, you got to give credit to Atlanta, and they were able to take care of business. But I saw a very winnable game, to be honest. And I think the Raptors honestly can be and do have a better team than the Hawks. Just fatigue plays into it. And the poor shooting really shows the fatigue. If you're shooting 1 for 7 from 3, you don't got your legs. You don't got them. And I really... did not want to see Lowry play more than 33 minutes that game, and he played 37.
One thing also, before we wrap up Raptors, but one thing that I thought was very concerning as well, the second quarter against the Hawks, they gave up 38, and then the second quarter against the Nets, they gave up 40.
Yeah.
You can't develop a lead and win the first quarter. The first quarter against the Nets, they won by 11 points, and then you give up 40 in the second quarter. Mm-hmm. Same thing, you win the first quarter by 8 against Atlanta, and then you give up 38. You lose it by 9. Now you're down.
Yeah.
You're down 1 or you're down 3, whatever the math is.
And part of that is also the bench coming into the game and being able to really play at the level that the starters are playing at, and especially when guys out. We haven't seen OG in 2 weeks, so we can have 2 weeks, right? So when OG can't play, the next man up that's coming off the bench, because Norm moves to the starting lineup, the next man up is really, really important. So that 6 man is very, very important. We've seen Chris Boucher really fill in that role. We need a Stanimo. We need a Terrence Davis. We need a Yuta. We need a Bembry. whether it's collectively or a single individual performance, they really need to step up together.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk around the league, man. Let's look
Yeah.
around the league because it was a weird week because it seemed like everybody broke a career high, broke some sort of scoring
Everybody.
offensive record. But I want to start out in the West with the Sacramento Kings. The what? The Sacramento Kings, baby. They had a 4-0 week.
Yeah.
Let me list off the teams that they beat this week. They beat the Nuggets. They beat the Celtics. Sorry, my fault. I'm missing a game. So they beat the Clippers and the Nuggets on a back-to-back, Saturday, Sunday.
That's tough.
And then on the Wednesday of that week, they beat the Celtics. The Monday of that week, they beat the Pelicans, which is another team we're going to talk about because they've been playing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And then before that, if you want to go back to the 22nd of January, their only loss came against the Heat by 1 point. They beat the Raptors. They beat the Magic. They beat the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
So they've won 6 of their last 7 games. They won 4 straight.
Yep.
De'Aaron Fox is killing.
They've won actually 7 out of the last 8.
7 of their last 8.
Yep. We'll add one more.
De'Aaron Fox is killing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about these Kings, man?
I don't know. They're always the Kings have a good group of guys, a good young core. I don't think their time is now yet. I still think they're still a bit too young. Halliburton came in as a rookie. He's been doing well, which we'll talk about later. I'm worried about their coach, to be honest. I don't think Luke does a lot to complement the team. I don't think he has always put his guys in a position to win. He's been given a young team before, and he hasn't done that well with a young Lakers team. Not that there was many expectations there. I think this young Sac team is better than that young Lakers team. They've got a bunch of good stars, a bunch of good young stars coming in. So, the teams you listed out, those are not scrubby teams by any means, right? So, can they play at a high level? They also have Harrison Barnes, who is a great.
If I told you the Raptors had the Celtics and then on back-to-back Denver Clippers,
they're not going 3-0.
You think they could do that 3-0?
They're not going 3-0, and that's the tough part where they're so young. I don't think their time is now yet, but for them to pull that off at this level, at this stage in the season, I think is very impressive. Who knows? Maybe they can sneak into the playoff picture. Who knows about that?
De'Aaron Fox, I want to show you his last 4 games.
Oh, buddy, I know.
38 points, 12 assists, 26 points, 11 assists, 24 points, 5 assists, 36 points, 7 assists. So the kid is scorching.
Yeah.
His 3-point percentages, with the exception of one, actually a couple games,
he's
decent.
not that great of a shooter.
His field goal percentage is pretty efficient. He's 58, 53, 45, 60. His 3 could get better, but this guy is on a scorcher right now.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that it's too contingent on him.
I mean, he's a star. He's a star player. I mean,
I don't trust Buddy Hield.
For a lot of teams, it usually depends on the way your star player plays, and that's why I'm saying they're still a bit too young. I don't know if De'Aaron Fox can keep this up for a long period of time. Luckily, he's been doing really well right now. Throughout the season, he's been doing really well. He does have to clean up his turnovers, but when you're giving the ball, the amount of times you're giving the ball to De'Aaron Fox, that's going to happen. I just want to say I was this close to trading him away on fantasy a couple weeks ago. This close, and thank God I didn't, because he's been destroying the league, and he's been amazing.
Killing.
He's been amazing.
He's been killing, and another guy too, Buddy Hield. Like you kind of suck, man.
I have him on fantasy too, and I see the stats, and it's
you kind of suck, bro.
It hurts. It hurts.
I'm not gonna lie. Like over this 4-game winning streak, like 16 points, 25% from the field.
Yeah.
15 points, 31% from the field. 5 points, and then like last game, 22 points. Great, thank you.
It's about time.
39% from the field.
Yeah, he is very inefficient. Very inefficient. But
you know who's having a sleeper year though? HB, Harrison Barnes.
Yeah.
He's having a very great defensive year. He's having an efficient year. I think he catches too much flack because he was replaced by Kevin Durant, and right before he left, he had like a historically bad finals game.
He
where
also didn't really
20 shots.
He also didn't do much when he was in Dallas too. So he's been he's
so
caught a lot of flack
I'm happy
for the
to
past.
see. I think maybe he's just starting to fit into his role a little bit better.
Yeah.
But Sacramento, man, they're still 12th in the West. I don't know that they're going to be a playoff team, but
maybe they can sneak in at the end. But
you got to be happy about De'Aaron Fox. That's all I'm going to say. You got to be happy as a fan of De'Aaron Fox to see him because we talked about him being like the slowest in his draft class to get to this level. So
yeah.
Let's move over to the Pelicans because we talked about the Pelicans briefly. But the Pelicans have been It's been a bit of a whirlwind. I'm not gonna lie to you in terms of lineup changes, who's gonna play, who's not gonna play.
Yep.
JJ Redick, Lonzo Ball, trade
Trade
rumors,
rumors.
and then sort of just finding that groove between Ingram and Zion because they can both produce, but I feel like it just doesn't fit. They don't know how to really work together.
Mm-hmm.
But the last few games, man, they've been looking pretty good. So I want to ask you a question because this is a very strange question because easily the most hyped player since LeBron.
Yeah.
Is he underrated? Is Zion Williamson underrated? Because look, from a league perspective, he's definitely Showtime.
Yeah.
But I'm saying media, fans, buzz, Twitter, no one talks about Zion. And Zion just hit a huge milestone.
He did hit.
And nobody talked about it.
We saw some reports about it. No. We saw some reports about it.
We see reports because we're nose deep, but like the average fan probably didn't hear it.
For people who don't know, he was the fastest to hit 1,000 points in a career.
1,000 or 3,000?
I think it was 1,000.
That makes more sense because he played like 30 games.
And that's why. I think it's because he played. I'm not sure if they did it based off age. I think they did it based off of age or minutes.
I think it was quickest to get to those points.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a big milestone. I think he's, to be honest, I think he's properly rated. I don't think he's overrated. I don't think he's underrated. We know from a box office standpoint, we know from a let's sell ticket standpoint, he's big time. Big, athletic dude, powerful dude. Casual fan wants to see the dunks. They want to see all the powerful moves. They want to see him body people and everything. That we get that. Where I agree with him, people not going crazy is his game is not even developed yet. He's still mad raw. Like if you look at his points and how he plays, it's based off athleticism. It's straight up get a rebound. It's straight up truck your way to the paint. It's straight up jump over you and I'm going to dunk over you. It's lay it in over you, post you up, lob from over. It's not much of handle, shoot, handle mid-range, handle three. He's still got so much left in his game. And when you compare him to B.I., B.I. is so much more
polished.
Given him 3 years ahead, 4 years ahead, B.I. is so much more polished than Zion is. Zion can't necessarily create his own jump shot. He can make his own shot in the paint. He can't create his own jump shot like Brandon can. Brandon can really handle the ball. He can pull up on a dime. Much more polished. Has way more to his offensive repertoire. So in terms of overrated, underrated, there's things that kind of I think push him just in the middle. And that's just because he's not a complete player yet.
Yeah.
What I think for the Pelicans, why they're struggling, I don't think their coach fits their personality at all.
And we've talked about that on the show.
It just doesn't work.
No, it's not a thing.
It doesn't work for them. And
you don't get that guy to coach a group of young guys.
Especially with the JJ Redick trade rumors, and we can talk about that as well. JJ Redick can be a very valuable asset to any team. He's not a scrub defensively, and he's able to hold his own as a 3-and-D guy, and he's an elite 3-and-D guy, one of the top in the league. Given his trade rumors, where would you see him being traded to, or where would you want to see him? I want to see him on a contender in general. Mm-hmm. There's been rumors about him going back to the Sixers.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be opposed to that. Where else can you see him going?
So I just want to say one thing about Zion before I tell you the JJ thing. But Zion's putting up 24 and 7, 60% from the field, 36% from three. He's like 20 years old.
That's offensive.
That's
game.
Incredible.
It's absolutely
that's incredible.
Absolutely.
Like that to me deserves more credit. But hey, he's just got to win games. Once you win games, you get the credit you need, and that's just how it works. Uh-huh. But JJ Redick, I know that he wanted to go one of a few places. One being Philly, one being Brooklyn, New York. I wouldn't mind seeing him in New York because, I don't really see them as a contender much. They're a nice team. They could probably use his shooting. Mm-hmm. But they have a lot of young guys that I don't know that they want to bring him in and halt the young guys.
So you don't want to see him in New York?
I would like to see him personally. I just don't think that they would want to see him there. Okay. But I would like to see him there because New York, Madison Square, it's
nice.
You
know what? How about him in Phoenix? Let him run and play 3D alongside Chris Paul.
I don't know, because their 3-and-D guys right now are unreal. Like Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. Like I don't think that they would want to bring in JJ, who's not as great defensively as those guys would be, and he's older too. Yeah. He wants Brooklyn. You can forget about it. We have Joe Harris, and even then, I think they should get rid of him. But if they
Joe Harris,
yeah, we talked about that last week though. Not because he's bad, but because I think that his skill set could be
used elsewhere.
Yeah. And
no,
they
but
don't
he's
really
needed there.
need
I
him.
think he's needed there.
Well, if Durant's out, then yes, they need him there. But I mean, if he's there, then
It makes him one more threat
they
for
can
them
split.
to have, I think. But
yeah, but like I don't know, man.
if you're trading him for defensive pieces, then okay, I'm with you. You're right.
Yeah,
All right.
That was my only thing.
Yeah.
But like, I don't think that JJ fits at all in Brooklyn. I mean, they're already terrible defensively.
Yeah.
Putting him in there is just going to make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing is Philly. I would like to see him in Philly from a contending perspective.
Yeah.
He's played with Doc before. Doc knows.
I don't
his
know if he
strengths.
likes him that much.
He loves Doc.
He loves Doc.
Yeah,
Okay.
he loves Doc. Him and Doc
Okay.
have a great relationship.
Okay, that's good.
He played with Doc. Doc knows his strengths, his weaknesses. I'm pretty sure he likes Doc.
I don't know that from that.
Now that you said that, I kind of tripped me out. But
that whole mid to
I know Matt
2010s
Barnes doesn't like him, but I'm pretty sure that JJ does because
I don't
JJ's
know.
pretty neutral. I mean, he says how he feels, but I don't know.
That team is a tough team.
I'm gonna search that up because I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that he likes him, but
Yeah.
he requested to go there, so I don't think he would
Fair.
want to go there. And then that aside, him and Joel Embiid have an amazing relationship. He's played in Philly before.
Toby's there still.
He's been
Ben's
in the
there.
city. Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah,
that would be nice, and it's an older team. You got vets, so you got
Yeah.
Dwight Howard, Danny Green,
Yeah.
guys that are his age, right? Like him, and right now in the Pelicans, he's
the vet.
He's the vet. He's
Yeah.
the only vet. It
Yeah.
seems. There's like Bi, Zion. Like I guess
Lonzo.
Bledsoe is a vet,
Yeah.
but no, I mean Philly would probably be the best fit for him in terms of winning. New York would be a nice fit in terms of just like go play, have
Yeah,
fun
have
kind of
fun.
thing. But if we're contending, I'd like to see him in Philly for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Moving on to the next thing. One more team that I wanted to just mention. I think is a huge sleeper team and has gotten no love, has gotten no mention. We just mentioned it right before we started recording. Is the San Antonio Spurs. They're sitting at 13-10 and 5th in the Western Conference. Now that's not something easy to do. DeMar DeRozan is having a phenomenal year. He's not averaging the 25 and whatever that he used to average, but he's doing a great job in leading this team. There's for a team that flies really, really under the radar, for them to be in the mid of the table, mid of the conference, and the playoff teams is wild. So DeMar's averaging 25 and 6. For DeMar's never averaged prior going to the Spurs like more than 3 assists, 4 assists in a game. So him being a playmaker has been huge. He just had back-to-back 30-point games last week. So he's he's quietly kind of flying under the radar, and the Spurs altogether are quietly flying under the radar. And it's a good feeling to know that Pop still got it. He missed the playoffs last year, and people started questioning whether he should be leaving or not, or he should give the team to somebody else because the guys are so young, because the game is changing so much. But for them to be 13-10 and 5th in the Western Conference, I think is a huge deal for them.
Yeah, and two things I want to point out about DeMar. He's 35% from 3. That's a career high.
There you go.
That's up last year from 26%, 15% the year before.
Mm-hmm.
So he's been gradually getting better, and 35% is fine. He's putting up two threes a game, which is the highest in the last 3 years.
Yeah, he doesn't shoot.
So it's good, man. It's better. And another thing, 6.6 assists, also a career high.
Yeah.
So he's having career seasons in the things that were always his weaknesses.
Yeah.
His playmaking was a weakness early on, and his 3-point shooting, obviously, everyone knows that. But I'm happy to see DeMar still relevant.
Succeed.
I don't know if he's an all-star this year. I think with 20, with this league here, 20 a game, I think is maybe not enough for an all-star.
I agree with that. Absolutely.
But I mean, I'm happy to see him. They're still in the playoffs, and hey,
he's doing well.
It's Debo, man.
It's Debo.
It's Debo.
Next,
Denver, Yoke. Not really Denver, just Yoke.
Just Yoke, just dropping 50 on.
What a week, bro.
What a week. Yoke dropped 50. We had Curry drop 50 plus.
I think Jokic also had 48 this week too.
Luka had 47. Fred Van Vleet had 54.
Ridiculous.
Joel Embiid put up 40-point games. He's been putting up 40-point games, and I think he's making a great case for MVP this year. I asked you this question before, and you didn't give me an answer, so I'll ask you now. Does the numbers this year, and even in the last couple of years, do you think they're inflated?
Well, what do you mean by inflated? Like, are they fake?
Not fake, but given the way the game's changed,
I don't think they're reflective of anything other than offensive output. I don't think that. I feel like 80% of the offensive output now is not conducive of winning.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It's just buckets. It's empty buckets a lot of
because
time.
let's take a perfect example is let's take Jokic's last 4 games, right? Last game he had 50 and 12, unreal. Not the game before, but the one before that, 47 and 12, unreal. And then 35 and 10, unbelievable. Yeah, San Antonio, Utah, sack.
These.
Okay, you want to win a championship, right?
Yeah.
So you got to play the Lakers. So
Yeah.
they played the Lakers. 13 points and 6 assists. 37% from the field. No threes. Buddy, Anthony Davis has you by the shorts, and it's not even close. And that's what I got to say. Like, he's having a great offensive season. Kudos to you, my friend. But you can't do this. And I'm pretty sure they played the Lakers earlier in the year, too. I'm going to pull it up because they didn't. But I'm gonna keep an eye out for it. He's struggling against Anthony Davis. Last year in the conference final, AD took him out of the game.
Yeah.
So,
hey,
Jamal Murray had a great bubble. Boy,
Yeah.
did I get conned and picked him up in fantasy.
Yeah.
Boy, do I regret that. on draft night, I joked. I'm like, I feel like I should take Fred Van Vleet.
Yeah, you
with
did
this
joke.
pick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, who am I kidding? I got to take Jamal.
Yeah.
I messed up. Fred Van Vleet's having a much better season than Jamal. So I think these young guys know how to put the ball in the basket, but they don't necessarily know how to win games.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is that what you mean by inflated?
No, 100%. That's part of it. I think comparing it to years past, and especially when you go by decades, we never saw games go up to 120, 130, 110s consistently. If you scored 10 years ago, if you scored 100 points in a game, you're like, oh, wow, that's a high-scoring game. 105, that's a high-scoring game. That's a poor defensive game. Now every game is going 110 plus on both sides of the floor. So the way the game's changed, the pace the game's played at, the sports, I guess the basketball science with the whole percentages and the three-point shot, I think personally that's all inflated all these scoring numbers. Now it's the pace they play at is probably like so much further ahead of how they used to play in the early 2000s and even in the early 2010s. So seeing these guys put up 47 a night, 54 a night, 50s consistently, 40s consistently, how much does it really mean at this point? If you're not winning games, does it really mean much?
I mean, does anything mean anything when LeBron's in the league?
He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT right now. He's the GOAT right now.
It almost feels like they're just playing for fame
or second place
and like money.
Or second,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like and that's the tough part, man. Like, can you knock them though? Like, I don't know. I don't know how to approach it because the young guys definitely know how to get buckets, but are they going to know how to get buckets in a playoff series? That's what we all need to see because none of these young guys are in the playoffs. Like, think about the playoff teams that we're seeing. Like,
veteran teams.
Look at the East. Philly, vets. Boston, vets. They were once young guys.
Yeah.
And those are like
young vets.
They were young vets, right? Who else we got? Milwaukee, veterans. Toronto, veterans. Miami.
They got
young
veteran
guys,
leadership,
but they
veteran
got great.
leadership.
Yeah, they got a good balance. But like you got like Sacramento, right? All young guys. De'Aaron Fox is gonna get buckets, but can he lead? Can they all achieve the common goal of making the playoffs? We haven't seen it. Even Phoenix, to an extent, before CP got there, we didn't see it.
Yeah.
So I mean, New Orleans, all young guys, can they win? So I mean, it's tough, man. It's really tough, and you need veteran presence. And with them fizzling out the veterans, it's weird. It's like if you get the good veterans, you get lucky, you're gonna be in a better position to win.
Yeah.
And it seems like the teams that have veterans have all the veterans.
Yeah.
And the teams that have like one or two veterans, like they're like 25 or 26. They're not really veterans. So that's sort of where we're at with the league.
Speaking of the young guys, before we wrap up, we wanted to do a little bit of a rookie radar, a little bit of a rookie watch, because this year's class of rookies has been one of the better ones. One of the better ones coming into the league in the last few years. We just knocked a bunch of the young guys. These guys have been able to produce, and they've been able to contribute to winning, from what I've seen so far. Amongst the rookies, there's maybe 4 that are pretty much concrete in the top 4 of the rookie class. I'm gonna add a 5th one to the mix, who's had an incredible week and who's been pretty solid all season. So, without a doubt, LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball just had a career high 34 points this week. He started in his first few games this week.
4 games, yep.
Before that, he was coming off the bench and still dropping up, ridiculous numbers. what I love about LaMelo Ball the most is just before he entered the draft, there was a lot of talk about him saying, if you're basing this kid off of playing in Australia, you're stupid. And I love the way he's come into the league, and just he hasn't looked like a young guy. He hasn't looked like a spoiled brat that people say that he is. He's looked very mature, great passer, great IQ. Him and Miles Bridges, that connection is
crazy,
is dangerous. And just seeing him play and seeing how composed he is while playing, it's like I love all the Ball brothers. I love like the story. I love everything about that. So to see him succeed, I love it, and he's doing a great job. And he's been playing very well, and I think he deserves a starting spot on that team.
Yeah.
So to see, I don't know about your thoughts about LaMelo. What you want to mention about LaMelo?
Yeah. I mean, heading into the year, I was one of those skeptics about LaMelo because it seemed like all the highlights that we saw, he was a cherry picker, complainer. You know, like just it doesn't stop. You know,
poor
attitude, go down the whole list, whatever the case, a bad interview or whatever the case may be. Last 4 games as a starter, he's putting up 22, 6, and 6.
Incredible, man.
2-2, so decent. They lost to Philly and Utah.
They're not the greatest
really
team.
Good games.
They're not the greatest team. So,
but man, 34 career high, 22 points the other game, and the 6 and 6 is what impresses me the most with your 22 points. Like you're still distributing the ball, you're still getting the rebounds, bringing the ball down. I like what he's made of.
Yeah,
I like Charlotte. I like those young guys. Him, PJ Washington, Miles Bridges. I just like the connection, and I like Gordon Hayward too. We've sort of been proven wrong by Gordon Hayward, but Charlotte's exciting. They're in the playoff hunt right now. They're in a playoff spot, I think 7th. So I mean, if they're in the playoffs, I'm gonna be happy to watch them.
If they're in the playoffs, we ate our words with Gordon Hayward because we said he's just going for the money, just wants the ball out, do his own thing. If he's leading them to the playoffs and they haven't been there since the Kemba era, that one time, that's amazing for them. The number 2 rookie is Tyrese Halliburton. And seeing him
crazy.
I had no idea about him prior to the draft or prior to the season. And hearing all the murmurs, hearing all the talk about him, and he had a few good games in the beginning of the season and then decided to tweet about his shot. People kind of were upset about that. But man, he's been putting up honestly, decent numbers, and he's contributing to winning basketball. Like you said, this week the Sacramento had a great week. This week he had 13, 23, and 21 points. And
he broke his career high 2 games in a row.
Yeah, and alongside with those, he had 6, and 4 assists. So he's doing things on the offensive end, not just by scoring. He's a decent defender, and he's just been throughout the season he's been fairly consistent in what he's going to give you.
Read the fans his 3-point percentages, bro, in the last 3 games.
75%, 57%, 56% from 3-point.
And look at that too. One game he put up 9, he made 5 of them. One game he put up 7, he made 4 of them. One game he put up 4, he made 3. He's not putting up 1 or 2 a game.
He's shooting
9,
He's
7.
Yeah,
that's 20 attempts in 3 games, and you're shooting well above 56%.
Yeah,
man, these kids are traveled, and they're just
good.
young kids. It makes no sense.
They're good.
That's another young bright talent for Sacramento. Something to be proud of.
He's averaging 12, 4, and 6 on the season. 12, 4, and 5 on the season, shooting 48% from the field. For a young guy who's coming into the league, that's not poor at all, man. He's doing really well. At number 3, he didn't play at all this week. He got a bunch of DNPs, 1 DNP, and he didn't dress for a few games. I'm not sure if it was due to COVID or maybe he's nursing an injury, but James Wiseman has been incredible. I think out of all the rookies, he is the luckiest one because he came into the best situation,
hands down,
out of all of them. Being a number 2 pick coming into a franchise like the Golden State Warriors where they've won. You're surrounded around Hall of Famers. You've got Draymond and Green in your ear, always giving you advice. I think it's great for him. He's averaging 12 and 6 on the season, shooting 50% from the field. He's shooting 40% from 3. And that's something that's going very well under the radar. He can shoot the ball, and he can shoot the mid-range. I made a comparison to him to a Chris Bosh-esque kind of player. Someone on Twitter didn't like that, but then
they never like anything.
Go
on
watch
Twitter.
your Atlanta basketball games. I don't really care what you have to say, but he looks a lot like Chris Bosh. He moves like Chris Bosh, left-handed, big, mobile, can shoot, can put on the floor. He is the starting center of the future for that team. And I'm excited to see what he can do. I think that him at number 2, great pick. He's gonna be a star in the future. I can't wait to see what he's gonna do.
They got lucky with him. He's very gifted, I think, in terms of his skill set, his footwork, what he can do.
Yeah,
he's very moldable, and I think once they mold him and shape him into what they want, it's gonna be great because he's very gifted naturally.
Yeah. Number 4 is Anthony Edwards. He is absolutely, he's another one of those guys who might be low-key box office. I think he can do a lot. Very athletic, very confident in himself. That as we've seen in interviews, he knows he can play. The last few games, 29 and 14, 13, 23, 15, 25 before that. Shooting has been really up and down. I think he's still trying to find his role, trying to find his way on that team. That's part of being a rookie. So we're not going to knock him on that. I think he's going to be a great player in the future. And he's going to be a key aspect for this Wolves team.
He just needs to be more composed. I think he's a little bit immature.
He's young.
He acts out. He acts out a little bit on the court.
Yeah.
So I think he just needs to be polished a little bit. He does look like a football player. It's kind of like Terrence Davis.
He's built, but he can move.
But he can definitely move, and I just want him to get a little bit more polished.
Averaging 13 and 3 on the season. Not bad. Shooting could be a lot better. So that's why he's at number 4. He can do a lot better.
Yeah.
He can get better. The 5th rookie and the last rookie that I want to bring into the mix, who I don't think many people have talked about, is Emmanuel Quickley of the New York Knicks. He's gotten a lot of run. He's been playing a lot. He's been able to develop a lot. He's averaging 12 points and 2.7 assists on the season.
Off the bench, right?
Off the bench. He's not shooting the greatest. Obviously, being a rookie, you're not expected to shoot the greatest, but
it's not bad, man. 36% from 3 is really good.
Yeah, and 40% from the field, it could be a lot better. But once again, you're still learning. You're still, sharpening your game. So I think he's one of those other rookies to watch out for. And for a team like the Knicks, who've been having pretty much an overachieving season, compared to anybody's expectations, I think he could be a valuable asset to that team.
Can he though?
Can he now?
That's the question.
Given the Derrick Rose trade, obviously some news about Derrick Rose going to the New York Knicks. Apparently, Tom Thibodeau cannot go a single team without having Derrick Rose on that team. We know what the usage rate is like for Derrick Rose with Tom Thibodeau at the helm.
Yeah, for sure.
I think this definitely stunts his growth. I don't think they brought Derrick Rose in to be a veteran guy and to coach this kid. I think they brought Derrick Rose to come in and contribute. So it's going to be a bit sad.
I mean, he's not going to start over RJ Barrett. So
exactly. So
it looks like he's being demoted a little bit.
Exactly. So that's why I wanted to bring him to light today and now. Before that happens, I think he can be a great asset to that team. So I'm hoping this Derrick Rose thing doesn't do too much.
Yeah, for sure. And shout out to all the young guys in the league, making the league beautiful for what it is. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap this thing up. We got a Raptors game to catch tonight.
Yes.
So catch your Memphis Grizzlies and Raptors. By the time you see this, it'll already be done. But you know where to find us: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, we'll be there. And follow us on IG, Twitter, wherever. We're there, baby. Yeah. So just hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, hit the comment button, and we'll come at you next episode.